Hello, so we're going to have a look at this exam style question, and this exam style question is taken from the CATA case study, CATA standing for Cheetah All-Terrain Automotive. And this particular case study and the questions that we'll have a look at focus on the impact of multinational corporations. So the question in hand is assess the possible impacts on Nitric's local economy of the arrival of the CATA production plant. So obviously Nitric here is a Slovakian town and CATA, as we said, is a multinational corporation, and we're obviously going to have a look at the impact of CATA on the impact of CATA on Nitric in Slovakia. So first of all, start our answer off with a definition. We can define what a multinational corporation is. Obviously, when we think about multinational corporations, we're thinking about operations in more than one country. So let's first of all start off with a positive impact upon the local economy. And the really big positive impact is the job creation element. And in the case study, we are told that the number of jobs that could be potentially be created is 8,000. Okay, so we've got a point made and we've applied it to the case study. And obviously this is going to be particularly important, again, taken from the case study for Nitric, because unemployment in Nitric is at 11.5%, which is higher than the national average. So overall, this job creation of 8,000 jobs can tackle the unemployment and ultimately, therefore, unemployment within the local economy in Nitric will fall. And what does that mean? Well, we can have a multiplier effect. So this can generate a multiplier effects, and this is a really good term to use in any answer when we're focusing upon the impact of a multinational corporation. A multinational corporation could cause a multiplier effect. So what we mean by this multiplier effect is that by creating the jobs, it can have additional benefits beyond just creating the jobs. So potentially 8,000 people are now going to be employed. Those 8,000 people are obviously going to be earning an income. And what are they going to do with that income? Well, they're going to spend that income. What are they going to spend it? They're going to spend it in the local economy. So that idea of earning an income through the job and then spending it elsewhere is the multiplier effect. And what that means is the initial injection into the local economy by Nitric is actually going to lead to a far greater outcome and far greater output because the initial injection into the economy has created those jobs, but the benefits and the actual output from that initial injection is going to be far greater. So this can generate a multiplier effect. Workers will have increased income. And what will that mean? Well, they will increase spending in the local economy, and therefore is going to be increased quantity demanded for maybe local shops, and that would therefore increase the total revenue for local businesses. So we can quite clearly see we've got a really good positive point with regards to the impact that CATA would have on the local economy. Jobs being created, particularly that would be useful because it would address the high unemployment which is experienced in Nitric, obviously reducing unemployment, and ultimately this can generate a multiplier effect with workers now having an increased income because more people are actually earning an income, and therefore there's going to be greater spending in the local economy. There's going to be a greater demand, therefore, for local shops, and the total revenue for these local shops and businesses should rise. There's a real positive impact upon the local economy. However, we need to be careful that there may be some particular issues that may be faced. So we can counter this. So we'll counter here. So we'll just call that counter 1. We'll just call this point 1. Point 1. We'll underline that. And then we'll look at counter 1 over here. So counter 1, any particular issues that may be caused by Nitric establishing production in, any potential issues that Qatar may cause Nitric. Well, there may be increased pollution and congestion within the area. So increased pollution. So obviously there's going to be, when a factory actually opens and producing the cars, that's going to cause air pollution. So we'll increase air pollution. You're also going to see increased congestion on the roads. And obviously that increased congestion on the roads is due to trucks building the plant. Again, that congestion, again, is going to contribute to increased air pollution. So ultimately, it's going to have a negative environmental impact. And it may actually reduce people's standards of living within the area, because obviously people are breathing in more polluted air, for example, and therefore their standards of living would fall. Okay, so we've got a good counter there, considering the pollution element and how that would negatively impact upon the environment, and how people's standards of living may fall due to the pollution that may be generated within the local economy due to the arrival of Qatar. Right, let's consider another positive impact with regards to the arrival of Qatar. So point 2. So what we may see is increased tax revenue for the local government. So obviously operations within the area, obviously they'll be paying corporation tax, for example, and they'll be paying the local authority. Increase the so for example, maybe paying some corporation tax, for example, and pay some local council taxes as well. And what that government could do, increase government spending on infrastructure. So that may be spending on healthcare. It could be spending on education. It could be spending on roads, for example. Okay, and those things could again improve people's standards of living within the local economy. So another nice, neat point here that we've discussed, positive impact, the multinational corporation, Qatar in this case, setting up in Nitric in Slovakia. They'll be paying tax revenue to the local government, maybe also pay some corporation tax, and therefore that can allow the government to spend more on infrastructure. That could be, for example, healthcare, education, roads, and that may improve standards of living within the area. And then let's counter this point. So let's have a second counter. Counter 2. So a particular issue that may be faced within the local economy due to the arrival of Qatar is that it may be harder for local businesses to recruit skilled workers. Why it may be harder is because the skilled workers may actually be going to the Qatar production plant. Skilled workers move to Qatar production plant. So what may that mean for local businesses? Well, it means that if local businesses want to hire these skilled workers, because of the increased demand for the workers, the local businesses may have to increase the wages that they offer skilled workers. So local businesses increase wages to attract skilled workers. And what's that mean for the local businesses? Well, that means there's going to be greater cash outflows. That could lead to a poor cash flow. And actually, it may lead to many local businesses may fail. Okay, so actually, because of the Qatar production plant being set up, it may actually lead to local businesses having to increase their wages to try and attract the skilled workers, and particularly that may cause cash flow problems for the local businesses due to the greater cash outflows, and that may mean many local businesses fail. Let's be more specific though with regards to local businesses. This is obviously things such as businesses in the engineering, for example. Engineering? So many local businesses may fail, particularly in engineering. So then let's come up with a judgment. Is it going to be positive or negative? Impact. Is it a positive or negative impact? You can decide. Explain why. Explain why very briefly. And then you may say, well, actually, whether it's positive or negative depends on, and it's got to depend on something. And a key thing I was thinking of was it depends on how many local firms actually are used to supply the parts to the factory. Because obviously, if the local firms produce the relevant component parts that they're going to use in the factory, that's fantastic for the local area, again, because more jobs are going to be created. However, if the parts that are used in the factory come from overseas, for example, then obviously that is not as good for the local economy, because obviously local businesses aren't being used. Depends on whether local businesses supply component parts. And we just explain if they do, then there will be greater economic growth within the local economy, because obviously those businesses are thriving. So just to recap here, we looked at the impact of Qatar, which is a multinational corporation setting up in Nitrik, which is in Slovakia. We said that the multinational corporation would create many jobs, particularly useful in reducing unemployment. where it's a problem in Nitric, and this would lead to a multiplier effect. The idea that people being employed would now be able to have greater disposable income, which they can go out and spend within the local economy, and therefore local businesses would also thrive. We did argue that there may be environmental impacts caused by the multinational corporation, particularly increased pollution with the setting up of the factory and congestions on the road, and that may have a negative impact on people's standards of living. However, again, another positive point with regards to the multinational corporation, they will be paying tax. That would generate tax revenue for the local government. They could then spend that tax revenue on infrastructure such as healthcare, education, roads, for example, and that again should improve people's standards of living. However, it may be more difficult for local businesses to recruit skilled workers, and then in trying to recruit more skilled workers for local businesses, they may have to increase the wages that they offer, and that may cause them cash flow problems, and therefore that may ultimately lead to local businesses failing and going out, particularly those in the engineering sector. And then finally, we said we can decide whether it's positive or negative, with some justification of why we said that, but ultimately we said the success and whether it's going to be positive or negative depends on whether the local businesses supply component parts to CATA. Because if local businesses do supply the component parts, that ensures that there's many jobs for the local economy, and therefore the economy in the locality will continue to grow. Whereas if the component parts were imported from abroad, obviously that's therefore going to have less of a positive impact within the local economy.